Would Israel have ever been on my list of places to go before I die? Before I went there, I probably would have said no.
Do you think that even after such a while that you maybe your taste, you're still a bit
so.
There are still holes to fill?
Totally, yeah. I mean, stuff that I would never have enjoyed even 5 years ago, I can now appreciate, you know, very openly.
Can you name them?
Like stuff that I probably even but maybe not 5 years ago, but certainly 10 years ago, I would have dismissed as sort of cheesy listening. Now, I will be as much of an advocate for as anyone. ABBA, the Carpenters, Neil Diamond, classic sort of 70s, middle-of-the-road pop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan now, but if you'd asked the 20-year-old version of me, you know, would I ever admit to liking that kind of music? Of course I would have said, no, I'm only listening to death metal or whatever it was. And I think that's normal. I think when you're young, you tend to kind of align your personality very much with a particular kind of music, and it's usually the kind of music your parents hate the most.
How do you foresee the future in music? Do you think there's a lot still that will come out that could capture your attention, or are you positive in that manner?
I'm always surprised. I'm always surprised that I'm still surprised.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to get into the sort of frame of mind where you've probably heard everything that's ever going to touch you, and there's nothing new to hear. But I'm always pleasantly surprised that I'm wrong. There's always something that comes along and will make me listen to it with fresh ears again. But of course it's very difficult now to be completely original. Every extreme of music has been covered, from the most extreme noise music to the most middle-of-the-road pop music. All the extremes in between, they've all been covered. So I think the only thing now that you're really looking for now in new music is personality, somebody investing music with their own personality. You know, people like Morrissey, you know, those kind of personalities that they can do, or like even Kurt Cobain can do a very, and what were Nirvana if they weren't just a sort of traditional heavy metal band, guitar, bass, drums. But if somebody has a strong enough personality, they can make you look at it in a fresh way. And I think that's the case with all art forms now, really.
Do you think people are aware of that? Because I think there's a lot of people are potential artists nowadays. And
no, because not so many people kind of intellectualize it the way that I do, or the way that you might do, because you're a journalist and I'm a musician. So of course we tend to intellectualize these things much more than most people do. You know, most fans of music will be quite happy just to pick up 2 or 3 albums a year. They might buy the new Coldplay album, they buy Michael Jackson's Greatest Hits, or whatever it is. And I don't mean to be patronising in that respect, but that's just the way it is. I'm that way with some other art medium. Mm-hmm. But music is my life, and without wishing to sound cheesy, so I kind of invest a lot of time and thought and energy in finding stuff that's kind of on the periphery of the music scene.
Can you get away from music? Because I read, maybe it was for your solo project, that you went to Mexico, and you live also in Tel Aviv partly.
But that wasn't to get away from music. That was just to change the landscape behind the music.
Is that a necessity for you to maybe change that once in a while, to maybe refresh things, getting different surroundings?
I think any artist, if their output is going to continue to evolve and to develop and change, then you need to change the input. And the input could be a new relationship, it could be traveling to a new country, it could be hearing some new music, seeing some new movies. So I try and do, you know, as much as I can to keep myself stimulated, if you like. And being a very curious person, traveling is one very strong way I can do that.
What did you find? Was Mexico because of Buñuel? Because he lived there also for a while?
That was one of the attractions. Yeah, the main attraction about Mexico for me was actually a very unknown place. If you think about it in contrast to the United States, which is just over the border, we know everything about the United States. There's nothing you don't even have to go to the USA. You know everything about this place. You know all the landmarks, you know what the people are like, because we see it all the time on television, we see it all the time in movies. So we have a very strong idea about what it's like in the USA, and when you go there, it's pretty much as you expect. Of course it would be. Mm-hmm. When I went to Mexico, I was surprised because I realized how little I knew about this country. And actually for me it was a completely unknown, undiscovered country. I knew nothing about the culture, I knew nothing about the landscape, about the people, about the politics. And so that was fascinating to me. It was the same with Israel. When I went to Israel, I realized how little I knew about it.
Did you have any pre-interest in it, or was it just like randomly,
Not
like
really.
darts throwing darts?
Well, no. I'll tell you what happens. Usually, in the case of Israel, I went there for the first time because Porcupine Tree got booked to play 3 shows in Israel. If you'd asked me, would Israel have ever been on my list of places to go before I die, before I went there, I probably would have said no. I have no interest in going to Israel. But it's always, it's the same in Mexico. It's always interesting to me that it surprises me. So I was saying about the music before. I'm always surprised by what is interesting to me and what kind of does stimulate me.
But are you always open to things, or are there sometimes that you like?
Well, we all have preconceptions and we all have prejudices, don't we? But the important thing is to be able to, you know, overcome them and admit you're wrong. I mean, when I first went to Israel, I probably had an idea in my mind about what it was like. Lots of Orthodox Jews, you know,
Yeah.
or you know, sweeping across the plains on camels or whatever. You know, the typical. But when I went there, I realised that I was completely wrong, and I was very happy to admit that. But the important thing is curiosity. I think if you're curious and you keep an open mind, then you will always be the kind of person who will surprise yourself, and particularly as an artist, curiosity is so underrated as an attribute.